everyone. Welcome to my Facebook Live, only it's recorded. I wanted to continue on from my video from last week and talk about some tips. And I'm just going to get straight into it because last time, my last video, I talked about tools. You'll actually probably see some additional tools that I utilize. But I really want to talk about some tips and tricks as you're stamping. And I want to go over some basics to start. For example, you all know that I utilize my precision tip glue. I fill the glue bottle with Stampin' Up's Tombow Mono Liquid Glue. I just take the top off, I squirt it in. But I do that so that I have a lot more control. I feel like the glue doesn't come out as fast and as thick as it does in this bottle. And I also can address, very fine tips with my precision tip glue bottle. But one of the things that I always do, whether I'm working or not, is I always store my glue upside down. Always. In fact, this was created for me. This is a candle holder. It's got some hot glue down in the bottom of it, so the cap is stuck in the glue, and you can just take this and twist it, close it up. So I do keep this around for my bigger projects where I need a lot more glue than my precision tip would give me, but I always store my glue upside down. And one of the things that I can tell you is that I very rarely have any issues with the glue getting stuck in the tip, that it getting clogged. Normally when it gets clogged, it's partly because of the way that it's being stored. And then also, I've noticed that if I happen to forget to put the cap on and I'm storing it upside down, even though I've done that, I will potentially have a clog. And all I do is I just take a straight pin and help to clean it out, and it's good to go again. But my glue always is upside down. In fact, I have one for my workstation when I'm recording, and I have one for my counter where I'm creating, and everything is upside down. So that's tip number one. The other tip that I actually have a number of tips that I want to share with you, and then we're going to make a card utilizing some of these tips. But I want to talk about the stamps and prepping the stamps. Now, I know you're aware that we have both rubber stamps and we have photopolymer stamps. The photopolymer stamps, I don't even know if I can tell you which one are my favorite. I think I would lean more towards the photopolymer because I can see through the photopolymer. I can see where I'm stamping, whereas I can't see through my rubber. But we have labels on the back of the rubber, so you have the option to at least know where you are stamping. I want to share, I've got a stamp here. This particular stamp says best birthday wishes. So you would think that it all looks centered on the top, so it would be centered when I stamp. But if you turn it over, can you see the additional rubber here? It just so happens that when this got cut in the factory, it didn't get centered appropriately. The label's centered appropriately, but this is not centered appropriately. So if you were to go by the label and think that you were getting it in the right place, you might be surprised, which is why you'll see me stamp off unless I'm confident about where I'm stamping. The people who attend my classes, I ask them to also stamp off as well, because you just never know. I'm just gonna pull an ink just to kind of show you. And I can show you also how important it is when you're inking up your stamp, how you need to do it. Literally, it's just a tap, tap, tap. Then you can turn it over and you can see whether or not you've got it inked up well enough. And if I were just gonna center it in between these two lines, if I were gonna try to do that and stamp, you can see that I'm off a little bit. Not bad. Actually, it kind of surprised me. But I was trying to center, and actually centering it did get me on my line. But I wanted to have you be sure to do your stamping first so that you know where approximately your stamp's going to stamp before you actually take it to your paper. You don't want to bring your paper because you did not stamp in the place that you thought you were stamping it. Let me clean this off, and I want to talk a little bit more about our ink pads and stamping. Again, I showed you the tap, tap, tap. I'm going to pull out another rubber stamp. And what you need to know about our stamp pads, these are water-based dye inks, and if you see, they're stored upside down. Let me see if I can do this. So when you open it up, it's stored so that the ink pad is upside down. It's a foam ink pad, and all the ink runs to the top. So when you get ready to stamp, you don't have to go to the bottom of the stamp pad to get your ink. It's right there at the top. And all you have to do is tap, 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 and then you stamp off. And you get a great stamp. Now, one of the things that I wanted to show you is that if you push in too hard, look what happens. You don't need to do that. And then when you go to stamp, maybe you're going to do fine, maybe not. Maybe you rock it a little bit, and then suddenly you've got an edge to it. So you literally, when you tap, 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 straight down, straight up, you're going to get a great stamp. Don't rock it. Don't rock it in the ink, and don't rock it when you stamp. Because when you do, you're going to get those little areas that you see right here that once it's there, you have two choices. You can see if your mono sand eraser can remove that, or you just flip your paper over. So let me clean this up, and I want to show you something else. So I'm going to try to clean this stamp up because I really sunk it in. It was more than just a tap, tap, tap. But sometimes when you are inking up your stamp, for whatever reason, you catch the edge. I'm going to use this as well, I think. My other one, just to make sure I get this nice and clean. Because I want to be able to show you what I'm talking about. So let's go back to this edge here. Sometimes it doesn't matter how hard you try, and you've got to test it first to make sure this isn't happening. If you can't get a good clean stamp, then the next thing you want to do is you want to do a little bit of doctoring to it. Sometimes this edge might get in the way, and all you have to do, and it's not going to hurt your stamp at all, but all you have to do is take your stamp. Let me see if I can get this off. I've had this on for a bit of time. I'm going to use my take your pick just to kind of help get underneath it. This is a new label, and I put these on, and I haven't taken them off because I'm still using the stamp set. But now I've got this off, and this edge is bothering me. It's in front of the happy here, and you can see where it's kind of stamped over in a couple different places. So that edge potentially can be trimmed away just a bit. And what you're doing is you're taking it down. I'm not hurting the stamp at all, but I'm taking away that edge so that hopefully that edge won't bother me in the future. It's down a little bit lower, and now when I get ready to stamp, it's going to be out of my way. So when I ink it up, I can go ahead and stamp down, and things are going to be just as they should be. And let me clean this off of my scissors. And let's do another tap, 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 literally tap, tap, tap. Turn it over. You can see it's nice and coated with ink. I'm going to go straight down, straight up, and I've got a good stamp. Tap, 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 straight down, straight up. Okay, those are a few things to keep in mind, especially with these felt pads, because all of the ink is at the top of the pad. And when you run into trouble is when you're pressing into the ink too hard. Let me clean this off, and I want to talk about the photopolymer stamp for just a second. All right, so the photopolymer stamp, obviously you can see through. The photopolymer stamps are a bit squishier, especially when you're utilizing small stamps. You've got to be careful not to press, again, too hard because it will squish. The other thing that I didn't get a chance to talk about last time, but I want to talk about the Stampin' Pierce mat. You see me utilize this a lot with my photopolymer stamps. The rubber stamps have a cushion. See the cushion there? So when you stamp, for example, if I were just going to stamp on my mat, there's cushion there. there is not any cushion when you're stamping with a photopolymer stamp. So what I do is I pull out my piercing mat so that I get a cushion. And then when I'm inking it up, and again, it's just a tap, tap, tap. Well, before I ink it up, let's do this. I'm gonna move this out of the way so I don't get my hands in it. You need to prep your photopolymer stamp if you're having any issues with it initially, because photopolymer stamps will have like a coating on it. And so if you put the stamp on your block and you just take your finger or your thumb and rub over it, you're basically rubbing that coating off. The other thing that you can do is you can take your Versamark pad. Let me pull this out. You can take your Versamark pad and you can actually stamp your stamp in the Versamark pad, and then stamp it off, and that will help to take care of that coating that you have as well. So now the stamp is prepped. And you know, I'm not gonna say that you're gonna find this on every single one of the stamps, but when you do have problems, you'll see sometimes that the ink will pool up. And so you want to just double check to make sure that you've got a good coating. Now, one of the things that I'm looking at, I don't know if you guys can see it, but there's a little bit of a splotch right there. I don't believe it's the stamp. I believe it's because I have a bubble in the stamp. So when you're putting your stamps on your blocks, you also want to double check to make sure that you don't have any bubbles. This wouldn't have bothered me. I don't know if you guys can see that or not. There's a little bit, and what happened is because of the bubble, I didn't make as much direct contact as I would have wanted, because the bubble was keeping that from happening for whatever reason. And you can see it a little bit more on this one. So again, the larger the stamp gets, the more you need to pay attention to whether or not you've got bubbles in your stamp. And just test. If you see something, I'm seeing it again. If you see something, you can fix it before you go direct to your card, to your paper. So you'll see, I always have scratch paper, and I'm always just testing to make sure I don't have any issues. So it could be that maybe there's something on your stamp, or maybe your block, there's something on your block. And then a lot of times what I'll do is I'll put my stamp down first and then pick it up with my block and see whether or not that makes any difference as well. I do this a lot of times when I'm doing sentiments, but you can kind of see through and see whether or not you've got those bubbles, and then test it out. If you have a bubble and it's not stamping clearly, clean it off, move the stamp, put it back on, and try again. All right, so that's what I wanted to share with you with respect to the stamps. And exact same thing, tap, 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 straight down, straight up. Sometimes I will hold it there to make sure that the ink is transferring to the paper, but you don't have to press really hard. You just want to make sure that you get good contact with the paper. And then once you have, then you can move on. All right, so what else do I want to share with you? Oh, I wanted to show you a fun little technique. This is a fun little tip that you can utilize with your inks. And I'm actually going to use, where's my bottle? I'll bring my bottle back in. So I'm going to bring my Stampin' Pierce mat back in. And what we're going to do is we are going to utilize Stampin' Up's white ink. This white ink is a pigment ink. The pigment inks are inks that you would utilize for embossing, for example, because it's a pigment ink. It stays wet longer, whereas most of our other inks are water-based inks. And I also will bring in our Memento Tuxedo Black ink. One of the things that I wanted to point out with this particular ink is it doesn't have a foam pad. It's more of a, it's not foam. I don't know what kind of pad you would call it, but it's not stored upside down. And again, before I get into the white ink, here I am having a squirrel moment again. This pad is a lot harder, but it still works really well. It's just the difference in the types of inks that you got. And the Memento ink is an ink that you can actually utilize markers and alcohol markers and those types of things with it. So I wanted to just go ahead and let me see. This says that it's a dye ink. It's not a water-based ink. All right, so let me go ahead. I'm going to get back to the craft because the craft ink is different. The craft ink is a pigment ink, and we used to have pigment inks in the line, and they now only have the white ink. So what are we going to do with the white ink? Well, we could emboss with it. I'm not doing that today, but I'm going to show you a little trick to make your I've been using this already, to make your stamped images look more 3D. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to use my bottle, and this particular stamp comes from Bottled Happiness. I just wanted a stamp that had a solid area to it. This Bottled Happiness stamp is fun, but it is retiring. So if you like the Bottled Happiness, you want to make sure that you get it before the catalog expires because it will retire. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to ink this up, and I don't even know if you can hear it. I can certainly feel the resistance, but it's a very sticky ink. But you can see now I've got my bottle inked up. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to go straight down, and I'm just going to hold it here for just a second. I want to make sure I'm not crazy as far as my pressure or anything. I just want to give the time for the ink to transfer to the paper. Now we've got that, and one of the things that I'm seeing again is that little issue that we've got with the bottle. And I've actually done this a number of times, and I continue to have this issue even after taking it on and off. So I'm going to actually put a little bit more pressure in the middle here, just because for whatever reason it's not connecting. I do have my Take Your Pierce mat underneath it, so it should be better, but I have noticed that I'm still having issues. That's much better. All right, so we've got that. Let me clean this stamp off, and I'm going to show you what we're going to do. And this will give us time for this ink to dry because it is wet, and before I stamp on it again, I want to be sure that the ink is dry. We're going to use the same stamp, and I'm going to take a drink of water because I have a tickle. And let me see, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out, what color do I want to use? I think I'll use this Highland Heather. So I'm going to kind of stay in the same, I think. I don't know, maybe I want to use gray. Gray granite. I think I'm going to use the gray granite. I'm just playing. All right, but I want to show you how this works. So now I've got the gray granite. I'm going to go ahead and ink this up again. And the gray granite, looking through, looks like everything is coated. I did note that I rocked my stamp, and you can see I've got ink on the corner of it. So I'm just going to take that ink off because I don't want to get it into stuff. And I'm going to come over here, and what you're going to do is you're going to line this up, and you're just going to offset it just a teeny tiny little bit. So I'm trying to get this lined up. I can see through the stamp. I'm going to come down, and I've offset it just a little bit. There you go. And look at how, let me close this up and then I'll bring it up close for you to see it. It's so interesting how it makes it look more 3D. Here you've got 2D, and I put a little bit of gray over it, offset it a little bit, and now it's a little bit more 3D. I've been playing with this. Look at this one. I did it on the crumb cake, offset it, and you can see how the bottle is just more 3D. I did the same thing on a darker, and the fun part about it is doing it on the darker colors. And I also tried to do it on a rose. The rose, I mean, it was offset as well. And then I did it on the blue as well. And look at how pretty that turned out. I don't know if you guys can see it like I see it, but it just makes your piece look more 3D. So this is a fun little tip that you can do, incorporating the white pigment ink into your stamping, especially on these darker colors, although crumb cake, not so dark, but look how pretty that turned out. And add a little bit more dimension, if you will, to your card. Okay, let me clean this up. And we are actually going to move on to one of the tips that I wanted to share with you. And we're going to use the stencils, and we're going to actually make a card. I've got a couple of tips that I want to use as we're making this card. So let me get myself organized here. I'm going to bring my stencils back in. And this time, if you watched my previous video, you saw that I had an apparatus or a tool that went where I could line these stencils up in the holes, and they would all be in the same place. I loved doing that, and I thought about doing it again, but what if you didn't have that apparatus? What if you didn't have that tool? So I want to show you how you're going to utilize these stencils, and we're going to create a card with it, but how you're going to utilize these stencils if you don't have a tool. And basically, I'm focused on this notch. I'm going to be utilizing my glass plate, and I'm going to bring my piece of cardstock in. And the first thing I need to do is I just need to figure out where I want my cardstock to go. So what I did is I took a marker and I just colored in on my glass plate. Can you see that little diamond there? I colored in on my glass plate. So now all of them will go that way. And basically they're going to line up along my grid line. Okay, so everything will be in the same place. The trick right now that I need to do is I just want to get my paper in the right place. So when I put this down, I have enough paper in the right place so that when the stencil goes down, it centers my paper. I can always trim my paper up. I think that looks pretty good. I'm focused on the grid. So I'm going to pull this up for just a second. Try not to move my paper. And I'm going to use my grid lines. My paper is going to go right within these grid lines that I've got. So the first thing I need to do is I need to tape my paper down. And you can use Post-it notes. I'm just going to use my tape, but I'm going to I want to make sure that my paper doesn't move. I want my paper to stay steady the entire time. So I don't want to get in the way of the stencil, but I want to make sure that things don't move. And I'm going to do the same thing with my stencil. And again, this is why that tool was so cool. But if you don't have the tool, here you go. Now what we're going to do is we're going to line this up. We've got this line here that we're lining up to. We've got this line that we're lining up to, and it's right where my little notch is. So now that I've got that down, I'm going to turn around. I'm going to take some more tape. And no worries, I'll be reusing this tape. That's the good news, is that I can reuse this tape. But I want to get this lined up. And then I'm going to tape that side down. And the big thing is that I don't want it to move. So one of the things, and maybe you noticed, I've got some tape that is showing through here. Well, that's no good. That's not going to work for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick this up. And part of it is just, kind of wiggling and finagling until you get it where you want it to be. I know that I need to move this over, so I'll move it over. Now I've got this down. I'll stick that tape down, and I'm going to go ahead and put some down in the corner here as well. Again, you can see the value of having that tool, but we're going to do it without the tool. So now everything is nice and steady. And what you're going to do is you're going to take your inks, and you're going to start with your lightest color ink. So I'm going to start with Bubble Bath. I've decided that I'm going to use purples this time. So I've got Fresh Freesia, I've got Highland Heather, and I've got my Bubble Bath. And then of course I've got my green for my leaves. So we're going to start with Bubble Bath to start. And I am going to, let me see, I've got a brush here. So I've used purple on this. And I'm just going to take a paper towel, and I'm just going to double check to make sure I've got it clean. There's very little coming off. That's why you always want to start with your lightest color first anyway. So I'm going to just get my brush coated. I'm going to stamp off, or tap off a little bit. This is a really light color. And then I'm going to start taking, and I'm not going to go direct to the paper right away. I'm going to start off to the edge. This is a tip so that you don't get a stark color right out of the gate. It becomes blended instead of taking it and tapping down right away on your paper. And sometimes I'll tap that off, and then I can come back in, and I'm going to put my lighter color down, and we're just going to do circles. I need a little bit more color, I think, on this edge and over here. And once I've got that done, I'm ready to go to my next color. So I'm going to close this ink up, move it out of the way. I have to pick up this stencil, and these stencils wash off in water. I literally, when I was done doing my first project, I had them, just ran them under the water, and it was perfect. I didn't have to scrub or anything. So I picked that off. We've got that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go to stencil number 2. Make sure I got the number 2, and we're going to line this up again with this edge and this end. I'm going to use the same tape, so I'm going to pull that off, get this, make sure I get this lined up the way that I need to, and then I'm going to start putting the tape back down. I think we're good. Oops, pulling the tape off so I can reuse it, and we'll do one more, and then I'm going to move this stencil out of my way, and I will clean it up when I'm done with this video. Okay, so now we're going to go to the second darkest color. This is Fresh Freesia, and we're going to do exactly the same thing. I'm going to pick up some more color. I don't even have to worry about cleaning this because it was a lighter color, so it's not going to contaminate my ink pad. So I'm going to go ahead and take my Fresh Freesia, and I'm going to start blending that color, and you can see that it's a darker color. And we'll just go over with it. And what I can do is I can actually pick up some color. I tap it off so that I don't get too much, but I certainly can pick it up off of the glass pad. Let's get just a little bit more in this area here. And it's fun. I'm actually having so much fun with this technique. And even though I'm doing it in my tip class, I'm doing it because I'm going to give you a lot of different tips on this particular technique. All right, so we've got that one. I'm going to move it out of the way. We're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to pull this one up. Oh, so pretty. Look at how pretty that's looking. All right, so we're going to move this off to the side, and I'm going to bring in stencil number 3, little 3 right up here on the top. Again, lining up that notch, and then I can start bringing my tapes in to hold this stencil in place. So it's sliding around on my glass mat. I just need to be careful until I can get it tacked down. So glue tape here. I think I need to come over just a little bit. It slid. So we'll do that. Not hard, but the glass is slick. But I like working on the glass because it's easy to clean up. So let's go ahead and get this down. Got a little bit more over here. Put that down, and I've got one more little piece here that I'll put down over here. All right, now we're ready. I'm going to move this off to the side. Highland Heather, we're going to bring that one in. And utilizing the same brush because we're on the same color family, I'm going to pick some ink up. That's much darker, as you can see. And I started off, and now we're going over the top. Oh my goodness. This is a much darker color. It's going to be so pretty. All right, double check. Make sure I've got everything. There's not a lot going on here. So this is good. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to take, since that was a darker color, I'm going to take it on my paper towel, and I'm just going to kind of rub it back and forth to get a lot of the extra ink off. And then that way this brush will be ready for me to use again. I would rather clean it before I'm finished my project than set it aside thinking I'm going to clean it and I forget. I'm going to get the ink out of the way. I'm going to fold this again in just different ways so that I've got a clean side to it. And this is almost clean. Almost. Yeah, it looks good. Okay, so let's move on to our next stencil. I'm going to pull this one off. Look how pretty that's looking. And we're going to go with stencil number 4. So now what we're going to do with this stencil is we are going to get it lined up as well. Oh, I need to flip it over. because my 4 is right here and this is where my notch is. So everything gets lined up the way that it needs to be lined up. Get my tape down. Actually, it becomes really easy once you get it all set up. The initial taping takes a few minutes, but now, you know, it's just easy peasy. All right, so I'm going to use 2 different colors of green. I'm going to use Granny Apple Green, and I'm going to use Garden Green. I'm going to start with the lighter color of green first. And I have my green brush, so let's go ahead and get started with this. And I'm starting off, and then I'm going to color on. And you can see I have a lot of color here, so I can actually pick up some of that color. I didn't tap off on my mat this time, which I could have, but I'm starting off and then coloring. Now, one of the things that I've noticed is these leaves go down a little bit further. So I'm actually off my paper, but sometimes, you know, it's just the way that you're doing it, you know. I'm not going to worry about the fact that I'm off the paper. It looks like I did it on purpose. And a lot of times when we're gluing something to cardstock anyway, we might cut off that edge because it goes off. So I'm really not worried about the fact that this is going off the paper. So we're going to go ahead and close this one up. We'll pull this up, and we've got one more stencil to go. See, it looks good. All right, last stencil. This is going to be the darker green. This is stencil number 5. And this particular set is in the new catalog. This is a sneak peek. Not that we haven't had stencils before, but this particular stencil is part of a suite that I showed you yesterday. And I'm looking to see if I've got... Yes, it's called Layers of Beauty. It comes with the stamps, obviously the dies, and the stencils. All right, let's get this finished up. Let's get this down. And I'm gonna borrow some more tape from, I'm just double checking. Am I good? I feel like I'm off just a tiny bit, which probably isn't going to make that big of a difference, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. I want this to line up. All right, so off to the edge with my little niche that I've got there. We'll put this down, We'll come over here. That's better. I just felt like I was off just a tad. Put this one down, move this stencil out of the way, and now we're gonna go to our darkest green, our Garden Green. And we're going to work on this one. And this is another one, a little bit off, but it'll be fine. So it looks like I did it on purpose. Nobody else knows, right? You only know because I told you. So, okay, let's go ahead and get this darker green down. And we will pull this up. Oh my goodness, look how pretty that is. It's so fun when you get ready to do your reveal to see just how gorgeous this stenciling is. So let me go ahead, I'm using my Take Your Pick just to get underneath this tape so that I can get this all cleaned up, because we're ready to move on to my next little tip as we make this card. Okay. So I'm going to move this off to the side. I've got my little cloth that I'm going to utilize. 2 things I'm going to do. I'm going to clean this up and get this all done, and see my little notch, it cleaned up. So we'll get this all taken care of and make sure I have all this ink off of here. And then before I actually put my brush away, I'm going to do the same thing again, and I'm going to try to get as much of this off. I'm not so worried with this green, but I don't want it to be too terribly dark. So I'm gonna just do a little bit of cleaning, and this is how I clean. I mean, you could certainly use soap and water, but I don't know, I don't think it's really necessary because I'm utilizing it for green. All right, so let me move this off to the side, and I'm gonna bring this back in. Look how pretty that is. So pretty. Okay, so what's my next tip? My next tip is that we're going to do some, I'm gonna call it embossing. We can call it scoring as well, but you can actually dress up a card just by doing some score lines. So what I wanna do is I wanna put this into my Simply Scored. I'm gonna take my stylus, and what I'm gonna do is, this is 4 across. So what I'm gonna do is I am going to score at 3.5 and 3 3/4. So first score is gonna be 3.5 and 3 3/4. I'm gonna turn it around. I'm going to do 3.5 and 3 3/4. And we have to do this after we have done all of our stamping. And the same thing, I'm going to do 1/4 of an inch as well. So this is going to be 4 3/4 by 5. And then I'm going to turn this one around, and I'm going to do 4 3/4 by 5. And now what I want you to see is how we've added some design to this card. And once we start layering it up, you've got nice, I'm gonna say embossing. Yes, we did score, but I'm not folding this. I embossed it so that we've got some natural lines in there. So let me move this out of the way. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna bring in a piece of the, let me see, I wanna make sure I tell you the right color. The Highland Heather cardstock. And I'm just doing like 1/8 of an inch all the way around. Can you see that? So let's go ahead and we're gonna take our glue. We're gonna put it down. But I love this technique because it adds just a little, just enough to make this white piece of paper that's got this beautiful stencil on it stand out enough, especially after we put it on our layer. So we've got the layer down now. And then the other part that we have is I have a white card base. And I'm gonna fold against I scored it when I was creating, and I'm gonna fold against where I scored it. And what we can do now is we can layer this layer on top of the card base. Now what I have to decide, and I think I am just going to layer it, what I could do is I could pop it up, but we still have a sentiment, right? So I'm not going to pop it up. I'm just gonna go ahead and layer this down. And what I'll do is I'll pop up my sentiment. And my sentiment is my next tip. Okay, so let's go ahead and get this down. And I always try to get it right the first time, but it doesn't necessarily happen that way. So I have to do a little bit of adjusting, but actually this one ended up doing really well. Look how pretty that is. Oh my goodness. And can you see the embossing? The embossing just kind of adds just a touch of elegance to it. All right, so now we need a sentiment, right? What are we gonna do with the sentiment? I wanna show you a set that I've got. It's called Wanted to Say Dies. And I am actually using the Celebrate die. So you cut out Celebrate, and then it's got a shadow behind it. It also has Feel Better Soon, You're Too Kind. There's another one that says Happy Birthday. And just so that you guys are aware, excuse me, when I get my dies, I invest, and it is an investment, but I invest in magnetic sheets. It just works best for me. If you've ever gotten our dies before, you know they come on those sheets with the tape. And it's just, to me, it's just difficult. It's great for when you first get them. But because I utilize my dies and everything a lot, that tape's not going to work for me. And I really don't want things loose. So basically what I've done with this one is I keep my, because I've got some extra, this is my happy birthday ones. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put those on the back, and then I can put them back into the envelope that they came in. And that's how I keep those. I also will put them on the magnetic sheets when when I'm storing them in the stamp case, because I do store things together. This one doesn't have any dies, but this one does. This Layers of Beauty has it, and let me see, I don't even know if I did this one. Yeah, this one's still the tape. I haven't had a chance because it's brand spanking new. It's still the tape. But my two-tone Flora, I have the magnetic sheet, and I have my dies on the magnetic sheet. Just makes it easier for me. I will tell you though, the magnetic sheets are an investment. And I actually get mine from Crafter's Companion. They're just the perfect size to fit into these folders. When you get the 6x6 ones, those don't fit quite as well. But let's talk about what we're going to do with the sentiment. So what I did is I cut out 4 of the Celebrate, and I layered them on top of each other because I wanted it to stand out and to have a little bit of dimension without using the dimensionals. So basically what I did is I cut out 4 in white, and then I cut my last one out in the same color, the Highland Heather, that my layer is on. So we're gonna bring back out my silicone mat, and I'm gonna show you how I did this. I put it down on my silicone mat. I'm gonna take just a little dab of glue right here. And then I'm gonna take my little sponge, because this is quite delicate. But I'm gonna take my little sponge and get it with some glue in it. And then I'm just gonna take and I'm gonna tap this down on top of my sentiment. And you gotta be really careful because it is very delicate, but I've got plenty enough glue on it. Now what I can do is I can bring this over, and I'm just gonna start to line this up. And like I said, I've already done it 4 times with the white. Now I'm gonna finish up with the Highland Heather. And it just takes a minute to maneuver it, to get it to where it needs to go. But once I get it to where it needs to go, then I can press it down. Move this over. Get this one moved over. And now I have the Celebrate. Let me see, get this lined up a bit better. You can see the texture to it as far as how thick it is. And I'm gonna move this out of the way so I don't get any more glue on me. And I'm actually gonna bring in the shadow. And I decided to bring in the shadow because I felt like the shadow would give me just a little bit more stability, because this is so delicate. So now what I'm gonna do with this, I wanna get my C lined up here. What I'm gonna do with this is I'm gonna take my tweezers. Tweezers are another must-have tool. You see me use them all the time. My favorite is to pull my dimensionals off of the carrier sheet. But now I'm just gonna take this, and rather than, because I've got 5 layers now, I'm not gonna lay it flat on my silicone mat this time. I'm just gonna take my precision tip glue bottle, and I'm just basically kind of painting, if you will, glue on the rest of this word. Okay, now that I've got that, then what I'll do is I will take it and I'm gonna get it centered as best I can, utilizing my tweezers to help maneuver this And then once I get it down, then I can pick it up and I can do a little bit more moving around with it. Oh my gosh, I love this. Look how pretty this is. And can you see the dimension in it? And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it and I'm going to actually put it across my card. So let's go ahead and I'm going to turn this over. And of course now I have a nice backing to it. So I'm going to take my glue again. And I'm just going to make sure I get plenty enough glue around it. Go around my C here. There we go. And I think I'm going to layer it right about here. And I'm actually utilizing the embossing that I did to center it, if you will. So I've got a little bit of the lettering over one of the lines and I've got the other over the other line. And now look at this card. Isn't that pretty? Oh my gosh. And guys, I just made this with you. I don't have any others to show you. I played with the stencils last night. I don't even know where my stencil is now that I showed you at the video that I recorded with my tools. But this is more of the tips and giving you some ideas and some techniques to be able to utilize with creating your cards with the embossing, the layering of your sentiments. So fun. All right, the only other thing that I wanted to share with you tonight is just a little bit. I shared with you the storage that I was doing with my dies, but I also wanted to kind of share with you how I store my paper. And this will be my last tip tonight, and then I'll do techniques in the next video, and we're going to be focused on embossing. But these are work ticket envelopes. And basically what I do is I label my envelopes with the type, the color of the paper, and then also if it's a neutral or if it's a subtle. I do this, I put the cardstock in here, but you'll notice too, I also put my scraps in here. I've been crafting a long time, and the problem that I would run into is that my scraps would go into a different container. And then I would never use my scraps. I use my scraps all the time now because before I pull out a new sheet of paper, I'm constantly going through here looking to see if I've got a scrap that I can utilize first. So I do that a lot. The other thing that I do if I end up with a lot of scraps, and this one's not so bad because I've used them up, but you know the little plastic bags that your dies will come in. You open up the plastic bag, you pull out the envelope. I save all of these bags. I save them all the time. And then what I can do is if the scraps start to kind of get annoying because I'm getting in and out of my folder and the scraps keep falling out, I need to do it for my navy. But I just put them in this little folder and keep this folder in here. And then this all gets filed and I can just thumb through and pull out the paper that I need, and everything is together. And my scraps, I love my scraps and I use them. Whereas before I would end up having to get rid of my scraps because I would end up with a bin of scraps that I wasn't utilizing. Now I utilize them. So that's a great tip. And these are just their Avery work ticket holders. So anyway, wanted to share that with you. I think I'm going to close for now. Thank you for joining me for this video, and I will see you guys in the next video. The next video, it's all about embossing, but it's dry embossing and it's heat embossing. So we'll talk to you then. Thanks everyone. Bye.